Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Heather McDougall, and I'm very excited to have certified personal trainer and McDougall program personal trainer,
Hi, everyone.
Jack Dixon, on the show with us.
I'm Heather McDougall.
Jack is incredible at getting people to do things that they don't want to do. I've got the diet thing right. You know, food, it's easy, but exercise and incorporating exercise into my daily routine has been difficult until I met Jack and started to spend a lot of time with him and realized that I don't have to be spending a lot of time in the gym or big chunks doing my exercise. And so he's helped me incorporate functional fitness into my life in an easy way. And I know he's going to be doing that for you here today. So welcome, Jack. Great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Heather, thanks so much. I'm really looking forward to this. I love doing these things with you, and I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think, one of the things that people don't know about the McDougall program is how important exercise is to the 12-day program. You speak 2 different times during the program and really get at fitness, no matter where you're at, because we have people in our program that don't do anything. They're very sedentary and they want to know where to start in a way that's not going to hurt them, in a way that they're going to stick to it. And you are so good at doing that. I really appreciate that about you.
Thank you. Well, exercise is a critical component of making a lifestyle change. And when you come into the 12-day program, we want to give you all the tools you have available to you. And why would you eliminate movement or exercise if it helps you burn calories, get stronger, be more efficient at everyday activities? So it's really critical. And like you said, many people who have never been active in their whole life don't know how to begin or how to start. They're really intimidated and they think that they have to start really big and it's not that difficult. You just got to start somewhere.
Well, that's what I would do is I would think that I had to, commit to, 30 minutes or an hour at a time. And it was just so hard. I would make excuses not to do it. And learning that I could just do it in little chunks has just been amazing. So
Yeah, the standard recommendations from all the major industries, the Mayo Clinic, the Center for Disease Control, the Surgeon General recommends 150 to 300 minutes a week of cardiovascular exercise. And I know that's great and it's a valid recommendation, but for many people, that's too big, that's too intimidating. If they're doing nothing, they can't imagine doing 30 minutes a day. So we start small and we build from there and make it doable. If you make it doable, that's the secret. The consistency is really the secret, not killing yourself.
well, let's talk a little bit about what functional fitness is, because I think a lot of people think they have to be at a gym, lifting weights, using these machines, and you can do that, but there's another component to it that I think is really important.
Yeah, the term functional fitness simply means performing exercises that are similar to the movements you do in everyday life, right? Things around the house, it's generally called ADLs, activities for daily living. So, like you said, you can go into a gym and use all their pieces of equipment. Nothing wrong with that. I don't want to say anything bad about it, but that doesn't necessarily carry over to real life. Where in real life, we do things like we bend, we turn, we twist, we squat, we lunge, right? We don't do things sitting on machines in real life activities. We do things where we have to use our own body in the way it was designed to be used, where we have to stabilize it in space. So if you choose exercises that mimic more of those daily activities, you get more benefit in terms of functional fitness. That's why it's functional.
I love that. So, you've worked out with a lot of people that don't like to exercise, me being one of them. How do you get people started?
Well, it's funny. I say this many times. You've heard me say it. If it was easy, I wouldn't have a job, right? So most people, like if you go in any gym in the world in January 1st, the gym is packed with people making New Year's resolutions. And about 6 weeks later, many of them are gone. They either do too much and get injured or too little and get hurt, right? So if you design a program for someone, first I interview someone and I, find out if there's limitations or illnesses or medications or restrictions or injury, whatever it is. Then we design a program. And many people, by the time they get to that stage, they're really excited. They're really ready to commit. As a matter of fact, they mostly overcommit. They want to do too much. So if we make it small and doable to where you develop the habit of doing it, that way you're much more consistent. So, some people use the term motivation. Jack, I need you to hire me to motivate me. And I say, that doesn't really work. Motivation comes and goes. We need to develop discipline. So if you make it small and something that they can actually fit into their lives, so it's not a big burden, you don't need a ton of equipment to do it or a lot of space. People work out right in their living room, and some people have full gyms. There's everything in between. So if you make it realistic and doable and try to hold them to, being on a consistent schedule, that's what seems to work. You develop the habit over time, the discipline becomes habit, and that's where you have the most success.
So I'm like most people, and I get really excited when I'm going to start a new routine, and I do it for a while, but then I fall off. And why do we do that? And how do we stay back on track?
Well,
I'll get really excited and exercise for a couple weeks, and then something will happen, and I'll stop. And how do we avoid that?
really great question. Statistically, the studies show that it takes 30 days to 6 months to develop an exercise habit. How many days do you think it takes to break that exercise habit? You just told me, like 2 days, right? We get out of the loop. We catch a cold, something happens, the car breaks down. We don't exercise for 2 or 3 days, and we go, I've screwed the whole thing up. I might as well just quit. The secret is to just keep coming back. So when you work with a trainer or someone like me, right, I try to keep you progressing. I mean, the term progressive resistance is what we're after. So I don't give you an exercise program that you do for the rest of your life. We change it as we go. As you get stronger, we adapt. If an exercise isn't working for you, we adjust it. But we have to make it a little harder, a little more challenging. But if I made it too hard for you or anybody else at the beginning, you wouldn't do it, right? If it's too defeating, it's very easy to make something too difficult for someone to do. So if you keep it fresh, add in new exercises. Not everybody likes it when I add in a new exercise, but that's real life, right? It's called progressive. You have to build as you get
Hard.
stronger, you got to work a little harder. And when someone's brand new, they see very rapid strength gains at the beginning. Over time, it trails off. So you stimulate them with new exercises. And once you adapt to a program, you get a new one. So it's many times I'll design a program for someone that they use for a period of time, could be 6 weeks or longer, and then we either modify that or increase it or progress it along. And then we give them a second workout. So they have some alternate workouts they can do, one week, one another week. So you just try to keep it going. You don't have to change it dramatically every time. And too many people think that. If you talk to people who have been doing this for a really long time, they generally do a lot of the same things over and over again and just get really good at functional movements. We don't have to overcomplicate it. It doesn't have to be the latest and greatest celebrity workout. Just stick to the basic movement patterns that help in real life, and that's where you make the most progress. So it's not always going to be super exciting, but neither is brushing your teeth every day, but you do it anyway, right? This is something we want to just do. Over time, you see the benefits, and then you miss it when you don't do it versus avoid it.
Thank you.
You
We
bet.
were laughing about this before the show, and I know everybody wants to know this. I mean, it's human nature. What's the best exercise, the most bang for our buck, so we can do the littlest amount and still get results?
Well, great question. So if you look at exercises, go in any gym in the world, look at any kind of workout, there are movements that are called what we call single joint movements that move one joint at a time. A bicep curl, right? Only the elbow is moving. And then there's like a compound movement or a multi-joint movement. So think of a squat, just a body weight squat, not a bar on the back of your shoulders, just squatting. When you squat, you move your ankles, your knees, your hips, your core is involved. So generally speaking, if you're going to choose any exercise, the more joints that are moving at one time, the more muscles are moving, the more bang for your buck you get. So compound movements are better than single joint movements. There's nothing wrong with single joint movements, but like you said, if you're trying to make it efficient and not work out too long, you work a lot of muscles at one time. That's where most people should be. Most of their workout life is performing compound movements. They could be pushing, pulling, pull downs, overhead presses, squats, lunges. These are actually movements that we do in everyday life. So the more joints you move, the more muscles you move, the more bang for your buck.
Thanks, Jack. You make exercise sound fun. Let's see some questions in the chat. Elizabeth Markowitz, she's writing in. She went through our 12-day program and she is saying hi to you, Jack, and letting you know how much you inspired her to exercise. She used to hate exercise and now she's,
Wow.
getting the benefits from
Wow.
exercise. She has
That
a,
makes me so happy. That's music to my ears.
right? I
Thank
know.
you, Elizabeth.
If only all your clients would.
Right.
She says she's been walking for a while and she's interested in trying to run now that she's lost a lot of weight. Can you give some advice to a new runner?
Yeah, there are many great programs out there. If you go to runnersworld.com, there are like beginning running programs where they teach you how to run walk at start. That's really a great way to go. So you don't want to go from walking to automatically try and run 5 miles, right? You want to do it in little increments. So you might walk for a few minutes and run for a few more minutes. So if you go to Runner's World, there's a great program there. Now I'm drawing a blank. There's a trainer in the world out there. His whole entire thing is walk run. I'll think of his name in a minute. Most people have heard of him. His whole theory is walking run, even marathons. So, but running is a great sport. You don't have to do it in order to get benefit, but if you want to do it, there are a million programs out there. And if Elizabeth wants to write to me or anybody, I can send you some links to help you find a beginning runners program. But most people are too aggressive. They want to run 5 miles because their neighbor runs 5 miles, but it might just be a few yards at a time. So Elizabeth could take the same route that she walks, walk for 5 minutes, run for 30 seconds, walk for 5 minutes, run for 30 seconds, and gradually increase the running time. And suddenly you're running a mile. It's not all that difficult.
That is a key component to your approach, Jack, is that you start where you're at and build from there. I think so many people find themselves comparing themselves to someone else and thinking they have to exercise that much, but you don't. You just start from your point and gradually increase from there.
Right, Heather, think about where we get our information now today, right? From social media. And what do we see on social media? People's absolute best experience. Not only are they in tip-top shape, they're using filters and the best lighting, and they make it look easy. And the truth is, you have to work at it slowly over time. But if you get your information from social media and you compare yourself, you're in trouble. There's a quote out there that comparison is the thief of joy. So you don't compare yourself to your neighbors or your kids or the guy that runs by your house every day and waves at you, just start from where you are, make it realistic and develop your own habits. And over time, you'll see improvement. But if it's too difficult, you won't do it. It's just common nature. You just will not do it.
Thank you. Question from Video 1000 Nights. What do you think of the Schwinn Airdyne?
Schwinn Airdyne is great. If you don't know what a Schwinn Airdyne is, it's a bicycle that has a big flywheel on the front and two arms that move like this. So in many respects, your arms are moving like an elliptical trainer, but you're sitting on a bike. It's a Schwinn brand, like the bikes we rode when we were kids. It's a great workout. So Schwinn Airdynes are awesome. The beauty of any cycling or any stationary bike is that you really work your muscles, but it's not full weight bearing. You're not standing up. So many people come to cycling as an activity or a sport after an injury or a knee injury. So a Schwinn Airdyne, great bike. Awesome.
So there are a lot of different gadgets and machines and equipment that's out there to help with exercise, but you're a simple guy, kind of like me, right?
Yeah.
Are there any things that we must have to start a routine?
I mean, right on the other side of my office here is my workout room. There's a workout bench in it. It was given to me. I don't know if anyone would have bought one, right? So I use free weights, kettlebells, bands, foam rollers, simple things that are inexpensive and you can have it. You can travel with them. Exercise bands are a great tool to use. So you don't have to complicate things. You don't have to buy a gym full of equipment. The truth is, most of the pieces of equipment that we find in the gym are great at building muscle strength on that piece of equipment. But if it's not functional, as in if the user doesn't have to stabilize their body using the machine, it doesn't necessarily transfer to real life. So using your body weight the way it was designed to be used with some additional toys like dumbbells, free weights, kettlebells, foam rollers, bands, you can do a tremendous amount. So there's not like a single piece of equipment that comes into mind. We hear oftentimes when we do our 12-day program, someone asks about the power plate. The power plate is a platform you stand on that vibrates. And the manufacturers of power plate, I don't want to say anything bad about them, but it's hard to find independent research that says this is a great gimmick that builds bone density and burns calories. I don't know if it does. But if you stand on the power plate while you're doing a squat to press, you're still going to get some benefit. So there's not a single piece of equipment that comes to mind. Your body is the best free weight. Use your body the way it was designed to be used, and you'll have much more benefit, and it will help with real life activity. It often helps to reduce joint pain because you start moving the joints through their full range of motion. Many people that come into our program come into it based on an illness, right? So they may have been sick for a long time. They're not very active. They become sedentary. When you start to use your body the way it was designed and move our joints through their full range of motion, you can't believe how often people reduce their pain. Of course, in addition to the anti-inflammation diet that we follow with the McDougall diet.
So that brings me to my next question. A number of the people that come through our 12-day program are sedentary. So what would you recommend for someone just starting out, new to exercise? Kind of walk me through a week.
You just used the word, walk me through it, walk, right? Get up and move. So I really mean it. It's very individualized. There are people that have foot problems and knee problems. So if they have the ability to get into a swimming pool, right? A swimming pool is great. If you walk in a swimming pool where the water is up to your shoulders, you only have 10% weight bearing at your feet. So if you have feet and knee problems, you can get into a pool. Like that's a simple way. But I mean, start super basic. Walk the dog after dinner, right? So there's a new study I wanted to talk to you about. There's something called an exercise snack. Here's a simple example, right? The technical name of this study is called Enhanced Muscle Activity During Interrupted Sitting Improves Glycemic Control in Overweight and Obese Men. Let me simplify that for you. They looked at people who are confined to chairs, working at a desk 8 hours a day, right? And who had blood sugar problems. If they do 10 squats, 10 body weight squats, you just stand up and you squat 10 times every 45 minutes, that has better blood sugar control than a 30-minute walk. So we're talking 10 body weight squats every 45 minutes. That only takes a few seconds to do. You need no equipment. You can do it wearing nice clothes and a suit and tie or a dress, whatever. 10 body weight squats. You can easily find that. So they're now calling that an exercise snack. Research says that brief, intense bouts of exercise, you run up a flight of stairs or walk up quickly, that has long-lasting benefits on controlling blood sugar. So you start from where you are. If you've been inactive or sedentary for a long time, I really mean it when I say walk the dog. Reach out to your neighbor, walk after dinner. Taking a 10-minute walk after every meal we eat helps to control blood sugar. But most people, when they eat, even if they're following the fabulous McDougall diet, if they have a full belly, they want to sit down and relax after a meal when you should take a walk. That's the time to walk the dog, go out and do something. So you start from where you are, you start small, and you build from there. Again, you don't want to compare yourself to your neighbor. Well, my neighbor says I should be walking 30 minutes a day. Great for them, but if you've done nothing, let's start with 5 minutes a day, but do it every other day, and then we start to add it on to a fourth and fifth day. Then we start to add time, so you build progressively. I want people to feel successful. If you feel good about it, you're more likely to do it, right? If I ask you to walk 15 minutes a day and you get fatigued at 5, that's not very motivating. I'd much rather have you come back and say, Jack, 5 was really easy. I think I need more. Then we can build onto it. You're more likely to be successful. So start small and don't stop.
Thanks, Jack. You make it
Yeah.
easy. And I love that. I love the little bits of exercise. It just makes it so much more manageable. And, before I thought I had to do it in big chunks. So thank you.
Heather, your grandparents, our grandparents, used to walk an average of 23,000 steps a day. We don't do that anymore. We have this number in our head of 10,000 steps a day. Do you know where that number came from? From a pedometer company trying to sell pedometers. That's a random number. It equates to about 3.5 to or 4 miles, something like that, which is great. but we have this magic number that they put on your Apple Watch and you say, okay, I made my 10,000 steps. You know, for some people that's really big, and for some people it's easy. But we, as a society, things are much easier for us now. Things are more automated. We don't have to do as much. So you got to find a way to get moving.
So we sit a lot. We're at our
Yeah,
computers a lot more. I've been
yeah.
hearing a lot about standing desks. What do you think about that?
I just lowered my desk. I've been working with clients all morning. I am now sitting. I have a sit to stand desk. It's really critical. You know, before I moved here recently, a year ago, to southern Utah, I was a hospital, a facility ergonomist at Kaiser Hospital for 6 years. And so ergonomics is one of the number one injuries in the hospital, and people are forced to work many long hours. So we tried to get people to use a sit to stand desk whenever possible. So we learned the benefits of it. You can just by standing an extra 3 hours throughout a workday, you burn another 30,000 calories a year. So like, you know, it's really big to stand and move your body the way it was designed to be moved. So sitting, you know, we've heard the saying, sitting is the new smoking, right? Sitting is very detrimental for long periods of time. That's why the exercise snack, the 10 squats every 45 minutes, is great to help offset the many hours of sitting. Sadly, you can't sit for 9 hours and go and work out for 1 hour in the gym or work out for 1 hour and offset it. You got to constantly try and move. So if you are an office worker, if you're still working, if you have an office and you're on the third floor, use the restroom on the first floor and take the stairs. Don't find an excuse to move, you know. I mean, I have people that email the person in the next cubicle, you know, get up and go over there. I mean, really, just, you know, we need to find a way to move now. We're stuck on screens everywhere we go.
I always knew there was a good reason for me not being able to sit still. I have a
Yeah.
hard
Did you
time
know,
sitting in a chair for an hour. I'm always getting up and doing
do you
something.
know, Heather, it's documented that people who fidget burn more calories. Just fidgety people, people that pace, you know, just the more you move around, just little bits and pieces constantly. That's why kids are so lean. You know, kids are always hungry all the time. They're always running around, right? They never sit still. So the more you move, the better. Just move, move, move.
That's great. Thanks, Jack. Question. Oh, Caroline's on. She's one of your clients. She says sessions with Jack are still mandatory for this gal here. Jack tweaks the
Oh,
sessions according to the needs of my body. I love that. You have lots
oh.
of clients that you've met through our 12-day program that have wanted to continue their fitness routine and have found a real benefit
Yeah,
in
it's really
progression.
great. Thanks, Carolyn. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I love the people that I've met through. I mean, I love all my clients, but I've met some amazing people through the McDougall program. And, you know, to be honest with you, some of them have challenges when I first meet them. And that helps me to become, you know, better at what I do because I love to be able to overcome a challenge. And often people who have some sort of challenge or limitation feel like they can't do anything, and that's completely false. There's always a way to find an alternate way to do something or a modification. So that's one advantage to working with somebody who can help you. You know, we can go to the internet right now and search exercise programs and come up with thousands of them, but they're not specifically designed for you individually, which is why it's called personal training, right? You design a program to help people overcome those limitations or restrictions. And there's always a way to do it. And sometimes you have to modify it as you go. Sometimes people do something and they start to have some discomfort in a joint. You figure it out, modify it, change it up so they can keep going. But there's no need to not do it. There's always a way if you're willing to do it.
I love that. You're very encouraging to our patients that, either can't do a plank or, have problems doing this or that. And you always find a way to modify it and for them to get some sort of benefit, some sort of movement. And I love that.
Heather, you have no idea how blessed I feel to be able to work with the McDougall participants. So I really want to help them in any way I can. So again, it's really easy to punish people, and that's what most people think of when they think of a personal trainer, like the way they're portrayed on TV, just cracking the whip all the time. And there's a need for that sometimes, but mostly I want to be able to give you things that you can do so you feel empowered to keep going.
Thank you.
You bet.
Elizabeth, different Elizabeth is writing in. She says she has severe back pain that's causing nerve impingement affecting her legs and feet. What exercises should I focus on given these limitations?
Well, Elizabeth, that's a kind of a difficult question to answer in great detail. But what I can tell you is that when I work with people who have back pain, low back pain, when I was at, let me back up and say, when I was a new trainer, I would just give you exercises to strengthen your body. But now with some experience, I look at movement patterns, not just muscles. So I would look at how someone moves, how their ankles move, how their knees move. Are they stable? Are they unstable? How tight are the hips? So what I'm saying is when someone has back pain and I do a joint by joint assessment from the ground up, 99% tight hips. And the low back, the lumbar spine, should be a stable segment of the spine. It's not supposed to move that much. So when you soften up the hips, the low back often feels better. As far as the nerve going down your legs, many people freak out if they feel sciatic pain. They automatically assume they have a bulging disc. You could, or some people have a bulging disc. I want you to know that's not a death sentence. There's a great percentage of bulging discs that will heal themselves over time, even though it's an awful feeling. But many people that have pain in their legs can have something called piriformis syndrome. The piriformis is one of the muscles in your glutes, and it lives right next to the sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve is big, it's about the size of your pinky. So if you have a tight piriformis muscle or tight hips, you can get pain right down the legs that mimics a bulging disc. So, what I'm saying is a long explanation of I would have to do a little assessment with you to see how your movement patterns are. Or Elizabeth, you should connect with someone in your area at a local gym or a health club or a physical therapy office that can also do a similar assessment because it could be a matter of soft tissue that's tight. It doesn't mean that you're going to have that feeling forever, but there's usually a way to find something that works. So, sometimes it requires stabilization exercises and sometimes it requires mobilization exercises. So it's not a one size fits all. I wish I had a super simple answer and say, do these three things and you'll feel better. I will tell you there's an expert in my field. His name is Dr. Stuart McGill. He wrote a book called The Back Mechanic. It's one I talk about all the time. And Stuart McGill has three exercises called the McGill Big Three. If you research that, the McGill Big Three, there are three simple things you can do that are specifically designed to strengthen the core without hurting the back. If you want to write to me, I'll help you with that.
Thanks, Jack. That's very
You bet.
helpful.
You bet.
Kimberly writes in, she says she loves doing indoor cycling and spinning, but she has to really put in an effort to do weight training. Any suggestions to make that more fun?
Connect with someone from your spinning class that will do it with you before or after class. Right? And every study they do for exercise adherence, what makes people stick to a program, two things always show up. One is keeping track or self-monitoring. Keep track of what you do. Keep a calendar of what you do, right? You take that spin class, Kimberly, because it's on the schedule. So you have to show up at that time to take the class, right? The second thing that shows up on every study is an exercise companion or a support system. So find somebody in that class that will do some resistance training with you even if it's just for a few minutes. Again, don't think that, okay, I take a 40-minute spin class, that means I should lift weights for 40 minutes. Hey, that would be great. But if you're not doing anything now, start small. Pick 2 or 3 strength exercises and do those after or before each class. So you can start small, but like as I said earlier, you can't just rely on motivation. We're not always motivated. You got to rely on consistency. I heard somebody on social media, this fitness expert, say when they asked her what she does to stay motivated, and she shook her head right away and she says, "There's no motivation." She says, you just have to remove the negotiation. There's no more negotiation. I just do it. And I love that. She goes, if you remove the negotiation with yourself, like I'll do it later. I'll do it after spin class. I'll do it after I walk the dog or after I pay bills. Pick something, we find reasons to not do it. No negotiation. If it requires you to get up earlier and do it in the morning, do it. But Kimberly, connect with somebody else that will help you. An exercise buddy, a personal trainer. If you sign up for spin classes, most likely where you go, there are also strength or resistance classes. Some classes combine both, where you do some resistance training and spinning in one. So do a little work, you can find something, but you gotta start. There's just, I could talk forever just about the importance of resistance training now in this world. We know how critical it is in not only just keeping our muscles strong, our bones strong, anti-aging. There's a ton of research now that talks about cancer and resistance training and cardiovascular training. How not only is it effective for preventing it or reducing the risk, even in treatment. So like exercise is one of the most important things you could ever do. You got to do more than just cardio. You have to do resistance training as well.
So let's talk about that. I have found I'm now 51 and I'm not as strong as I used to be. I mean, I'm finding I have to do more exercise. And you told me a very interesting statistic about how much muscle mass we can lose if we don't do resistance training. So I know walking's great, but let's talk about how important resistance training is, what it is, and why we need to do it, especially as we get older.
Yeah, so the term resistance training is just a fancy word for weightlifting, right? Resistance, you could use body weight, machines, dumbbells, free weights, bands, all different things. But it's basically to maintain muscle mass. There's a term called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is muscle loss with aging. So as we age, if we're not involved in regular progressive resistance training, keeping our muscles and tendons strong, we lose that muscle mass. So when you lose muscle mass, not only does it make you weaker, more susceptible to a fall, but it even slows down your metabolic rate. You don't burn calories as well. Don't get mad at me for this, but if you put a male and a female on the same calorie restricted diet, who loses more weight? It's almost always the male, simply because genetically they carry more lean mass, right? So statistically, 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 will experience a fall in their life, right? Many will break a hip. I'm glancing down at my notes. There's a 1 in 3 chance, are you ready for this? That people won't survive a year after breaking a hip. And women fall proportionally more than men because they have less muscle mass. So if you haven't been involved in training all the time and you lose that muscle mass, you're more susceptible to a fall. Our muscles are made up of muscle fibers, slow twitch, more for endurance, and fast twitch, more for explosives and power. There's a type of fast twitch muscle fiber called 2A muscle fibers. Those are the muscle fibers that are responsible for reactivity. Like if you stumble, right, can you regain your balance without face planting on the ground? So as we age, if we're not lifting heavy weights, we lose that muscle tissue. So the only way to prevent it is to lift heavy weights. And I mean heavy. Now, I'm not suggesting you get off the couch being inactive and start lifting heavy weights. It can take you a period of months to get to the point where you're lifting an adequate amount of weight, but it dramatically reduces your risk of a fall. You've heard me talk about this before, so I'll just take a second to talk about it. There's a recent study, write this down. It's called the Lift More study, LIFTMOR, and it was done with menopausal women, 58 or older. It's a double-blind, randomized study. And they took these women over a period of 8 months, working out twice a week for 30 minutes. It was on their own. They were given instructions, but they didn't go to a gym, and there was no nutrition involved in this. It was just about weightlifting. And all of the women who qualified for the study had either been diagnosed with low bone density or very low bone density. So they were very much at risk of fracture, right? And over the 8 month period, twice a week, they were doing compound movements like I described earlier, squats, deadlift, overhead press. And I'm not talking about lifting the little pink weights in the gym. These women over time were building up to doing 67 to 80% of their 1 rep maximum. So for example, if you can do an overhead press, just randomly saying 100 pounds, they were doing sets of 8 repetitions with 80% of that weight. So heavy weight, right? Over the 8 month period, all of them improved function, improved muscle strength, had faster metabolisms, and all of them increased bone mass. So that's just, but it's heavy lifting. I get people from the McDougall program or from the general population that say, hey, I cleaned my house wearing my 2 pound ankle weights. I'm not going to criticize them, but I just have to be honest, that's not enough. We need to work harder. So we have to lift heavy weights to reduce our loss of muscle mass, right? As we age, every decade over the age of 20, if we are inactive, we lose 5 to 7 pounds of muscle. 5 to 7 pounds. That's a dramatic decrease, and that's what increases our risk of sarcopenia. So, generally speaking, right, when you take people who are on Fosamax, a lot of times this Fosamax, the drug that when people come into their doctor and they have osteopenia or osteoporosis and they're prescribed those drugs don't necessarily make a difference, right? You need weight-bearing activity. So the Lift More study is a really great study to refer to, but if we're not resistance training, and unfortunately, too many women think, well, that's for guys in the gym to lift heavy weights, and they're concerned about being bulky. If it was easy to be bulky, I would be a giant. Okay, it just is not easy. Every man alive who works out with weights is trying to get bulky and big. Go in any gym in the world. Are all the men giant? No, it's not easy. So women have to let go of that myth that if I lift a heavy weight, I'm going to get big and bulky. You don't have the genetics. You don't have the testosterone levels. You want to do it to build bone mass. So don't get hung up on how much you weigh. Get hung up on how strong you are. That makes all the difference in the world.
I do hear you saying, Jack, that there is no magic pill and we have to put the work in.
Yeah, your dad used to say there is a magic pill, but it takes you 30 to 45 minutes to swallow it, meaning exercise. Your dad used to say that. So, right, there's no magic pill. You can't just take a drug. You can't sit on the couch. There's no machine you can hook up to your body. You got to work. Doesn't matter, rich, poor, celebrity, non-celebrity. You got to lift weights. You got to build muscle. You got to use your body the way it was designed to be used. But the returns are gigantic. And you start from where you are, but you keep going. So check out the Lift More study. It's pretty inspiring. It's a really well done study, and you're going to see a lot more things like that because it works.
Thanks, Jack. Let's see. What is the biggest myth about exercise that you wish people would not believe?
Oh boy, that's a big one. I suppose what I kind of just talked about, that it's really easy. You don't have to work hard to get benefits, right? Again, I don't want to scare people away because many people have done nothing. They're staring at the screen going, I can't do that. You start from where you are, but you do have to work. It doesn't come easy. And here's one myth: you can't store fitness. You can't just work out once a week and think it's going to last all month, right? We have to constantly replenish it. So there are a zillion myths in terms of exercises, right? People still think that if I do a million abdominal crunches, I'll get a six pack. Truth is, if we have extra body fat, you're never going to see that six pack. There's no such thing as spot reduction. That's a really big myth. People think, well, if I have fat around the middle, I'll do side bends or ab crunches and I'll burn that fat. Doesn't happen that way. You modify your diet, go on the McDougall plan, whole foods, starch-based diet, perform regular exercise, you build lean muscle, that muscle burns more calories, suddenly your waist is a little smaller, right? So there's a lot of those kind of myths. But the secret is to get going.
Thank you.
You bet.
Question back to Elizabeth Markowitz. She says, thanks for answering her question. She wants to know if it's okay now that she's walking. Oh, is it okay that she's running on a treadmill, or is it best to do this outside?
No, a treadmill is awesome. I will tell you that in 30 plus years of working in a gym, most of the accidents that we see are on treadmills. Because if you think about all of the cardiovascular equipment in a gym available to us, Stairmasters, step mills, elliptical trainers, rowing machines, right? Stationary bikes, all of those stop moving when the user stops moving, but a treadmill doesn't stop. It keeps going. So a lot of people fall. So Elizabeth, if your balance is cool and you're great, a treadmill is awesome, right? It eliminates being scared to run around in traffic or the neighborhood or foul weather. Treadmills are great. You still get impact, but the bed, the platform that's under the moving belt is a little more forgiving because it's flexible. So treadmills are great. They're not for every single person. Again, if you got a balance issue, if you're concerned, treadmills are risky. Just use good judgment, but a treadmill is great. You do not have to be running outside. I will tell you that people that do all their training on a treadmill for an outside event, like they're training for a 5K race or whatever it is, they don't realize how much that belt is pulling your feet under you. My point is, it's easier to run on a treadmill than it is to run in real world, right? Also, Don't keep the treadmill completely flat. Raise it up to an incline sometimes. Real life, you run outside, you're going to encounter a hill. When you encounter a hill or increase the incline on the treadmill, it shortens your stride but reduces impact. So walk, run, treadmills are great. You can do it just fine on a treadmill. Just be careful.
Thank you. Question. Oh, Kathleen, she wants to know what my exercise routine is. So I I'm really follow a lot of Jack's guidelines. I do yoga most days, and I do yoga with Adrienne. She's online. She has free yoga videos, and they're not too long. You can do anywhere from, 10 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on how much time you have. So it's not a huge commitment. So that's very easy for me. I also live in an area that has lots of hills. So I hike with my neighbor twice a week. We go on this 5-mile hike that's pretty crazy. And I have a dog that I walk often on the same hills. And then I do Jack's functional fitness and the plank and, just I don't do as much weight training as I should. Maybe you and I should get together, Jack, and work
We
on a plan
should.
for me.
You mentioned yoga, Heather, but there's all kinds of yoga too, right? Some yoga is very restorative and relaxing and more stretching, and some yoga is brutal and very much resistance training. So make sure you're not picking all the easy
Oh,
classes,
definitely
right?
not. No, I like it to be difficult, get the most
Yeah,
bang for
yeah,
the buck. So I like to
yeah.
be very efficient in my exercise.
But what's most important is you found something that you like, right? That's really critical. So no matter how great something is for someone, if they don't like it, if they are, they're not going to do it. So you got to kind of hunt around, work. That's why working with a trainer helps, right? Because we help figure out what works for you. So you don't just pick in something random, but you got to find something you like that you can stick with. It's not too hard. If you love a gym in your neighborhood, but it's 20 miles away and you just won't get there because of traffic, forget it. It's just not going to work. You got to find something that's realistic. So you have found it. And I know you use the foam roller a lot too. So good job.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the foam roller. That changed my life. Before I met you, I would have aches and pains and just, I think, out of alignment. And I heard your first talk years ago when you were talking about the foam roller, and I bought one and it's changed my life. And it's one of the things that you recommend if we are going to buy a gadget, a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
roller.
yeah. I guess you call it a gadget, right? I mean, the technical term for what happens with a foam roller is called self-myofascial release, SMR. And myo just means muscle. So think about if you're getting a massage and a massage therapist is moving along, you're face down on the table, feeling great, and they find a knot in your back or a trigger point. What do? They spend some time softening it with their thumbs or the palms of their hands or their forearms, maybe even their elbow, right? So they're breaking up stuck tissue. Using the foam roller is a way to do that yourself. So if you first use a foam roller as you experienced, it can be quite painful because the tissue is stuck or there's adhesions in the fascia. Fascia is like a web-like connective tissue under the skin. And so by working on softening up tissue that's stuck, you have better movement in the joints. So foam rolling is a tremendous tool to make you feel better. And initially, it's kind of painful, but the more people do it, the less painful it is and the more benefit they get. So the secret, like everything I've mentioned so far, is you have to do it consistently. That's where the payoff is. But a foam roller is so useful. Rarely is there a day that goes by, this is not a lie, that I don't use the foam roller, even if it's 3 or 5 minutes, right? Pick something that's bugging you. If my low back feels a little stiff from working out, I'll roll out before bed. If my legs hurt after a leg workout, the foam roller can be actually used as a warm-up tool to warm up tissue or post-exercise as a cool down or to prevent muscle soreness. So if people are sore after working out, it's called DOMS. DOMS is an acronym for delayed onset muscle soreness. Foam rolling has been shown to help release that soreness so you're not as sore. There's a billion uses for a foam roller, and you can even use it as an exercise tool for balance and stabilization or as an exercise bench when you're lifting weights. So I could go on and on. If I was stuck only choosing one piece of equipment, a foam roller would be very close to the top of the list.
For sure. And they're cheap too. You can get them
Cheap.
on
20 bucks,
Amazon.
25 bucks for a great one. Yeah. Buy a firm one. Don't buy a soft one. You'll regret it.
Thank you. Question for Janet. She wants to know what to do for neuropathy in her feet and swollen ankles when she walks or exercises a lot.
So, Janet or Janice?
Janet.
It would be difficult to, since I'm not a doctor and obviously I can't diagnose it, you got to kind of figure out what's causing the neuropathy. If it's diabetic neuropathy, you're probably getting some recommendations from your doctor. If you're, I'm just going to be honest with you, if you're carrying any extra weight, do your best to stick with the program and lose some of that weight. If you experience ankle swelling after a walk, you have to allow for a little extra time to come home and go into a recovery position. A recovery position is where you lie on the floor and put your feet up, your heels up on the wall. So you literally let the fluid drain out of your ankles, right? And the more if you're able to walk, that's what's helpful. Some people with severe neuropathy have a difficult time with walking and balancing. So again, I'll recommend the pool for someone like that. If you can find a local recreation pool that's not so cold, like generally speaking, if you're a lap swimmer or a serious swimmer, the temperature of the pool is lower because you're really warm. But the recreation pools where they do a lot of aqua classes, your YMCA's, big health clubs have them, the temperature's warmer and you can just walk in the water. So, if you write to me and we talk about what's causing your neuropathy, I can probably make some suggestions. But overall, general movement, right? The better you move, the more you move, the more you increase your circulation, right? And so try elevating the feet and ankles after a walk if they swell up, and that can help to drain some of the fluid out. Hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you. That was helpful. Question from Melanie. I know I'm going to pronounce this wrong, and I've asked you this question before, so you're going to know what I'm talking about. What would you recommend for strengthening the core if you have diastasis recti?
Diastasis recti is where the muscles of your abdominal, good job, Heather, separate, right? And a lot of times it happens if people are much overweight or after pregnancy, right? And the answer is not to do a million crunches and further separate them. There are plenty of programs that help to strengthen the muscles without overusing them. Again, I'll refer to things like planks and exercises like that. So you want to make sure that you're able to perform core stabilizing exercises without holding your breath. You don't want to exert a lot of pressure or your abdominals protrude out, which helps to increase or make the diastasis recti worse. So there are things you can do. It's kind of a lengthy explanation. I wish I could say just do ABC, but write to me, or if you go to YouTube, I say this a million times. I can't tell you how useful YouTube is for the things we're talking about. Now I realize that anybody can post on YouTube, but if you actually search it, you'll see people who are very qualified based on their credentials who are making recommendations. So if you research diastasis recti, and if you're concerned, is this something I should do? Send me the link, email me the link. Heather can provide you my email. I'm more than happy to review it and make recommendations for you. There are things you can do to improve it.
Thanks, Jack. That's very helpful. You have mentioned your email a few times. Are you okay with me putting that in the notes?
Absolutely. Totally fine.
Right.
Sure.
Okay, next question. This is from Fruit Sugar Love. They want to know if calisthenics or body weight exercise will help recover some muscle loss, or do you have to work with heavy weights?
No, I think I mentioned earlier, right? The human body is the best free weight. So when we hear the word calisthenics, we sort of think back to the day of Jack LaLanne, where you touch your toes and reach overhead. That's great, but that's not really resistance training. Push-ups are calisthenics. Body weight squats are calisthenics, right? So you can still use your body weight in the way it was designed to be used. So if you think about a standard push-up, right? You know what I mean by a military push-up. You're on the floor, your body weight is straight. There are people that can do a lot of push-ups. If you put your feet up onto a chair where your chest and head are lower than your feet, you've now increased the level of resistance. You could wear a weighted vest and do calisthenics, which would increase your own body weight. So it doesn't have to be complicated. You can get in shape without any weight at all. If you go to a park course in your local park, there are places to do squats or lunges or bar dips just using body weight. So first learn to use your body correctly, then you can worry about adding more weight. So you don't need to complicate it. You can do calisthenics. Just remember, it's not just about aerobics, it's about resistance training. So if you choose the right things, squats, lunges, push-ups. You can do a tremendous amount of strength building and maintain and increase muscle mass with just body weight, for sure.
Thanks, Jack. And we don't have to go to a gym, right? We can do all of
No.
this at home or outside or.
At the moment, all of the clients that I train do not have any kind of gym. Some have a dedicated bedroom, some work out in the garage, some push things out of the way, and we work out right where they're standing in their office. So, no, you do not have to complicate it. Many people love going to the gym, so it's okay. So, if you love a gym, that's fine. It doesn't mean you have to go there. I've got a friend here I met here in Utah. He doesn't like the gym. He works out at home. He's got kettlebells and weights and bands. He's just not a gym guy. I personally like going to the gym. Moving here in Utah is the first time in 30 years I work out in a gym that I don't work as an employee. No one knows I'm a trainer. I keep to myself, do my own thing. So I like it, it's just fine. But no, you don't have to do it. Whatever works. You just need a few pieces of equipment, simple stuff, bands, some dumbbells, a kettlebell, whatever, and you can do a tremendous amount at home. There are some people that say you can do anything you need with a pair of 10-pound dumbbells or 20-pound dumbbells, as long as you do them right. You can even make a weight actually feel heavier by how you use it, right? So when we talk about weight-bearing exercise being beneficial, it's not just the amount of weight you use, but the length of time muscles are under a contraction or under a load. So if you only have a light weight that seems to be getting lighter, go 50% slower and you'll find that very quickly you fatigue and you'll continue to build strength. So there's a lot you can do without belonging to a gym.
That's great. You and I need to talk.
Yes, we do. Now, after all this time, right?
I know, I
I've
know,
known you since you were a teenager, for real.
I know, right? And I've been trying to find ways to incorporate exercise into my life
All
since.
right.
And I mean, like you said, I finally found a routine that I enjoy and I'm sticking with. And that's the big one because I've started and
Yeah.
stopped routines countless times.
The pressure's on a little bit. Other people on the McDougall staff are realizing the benefits of
Oh,
resistance training,
absolutely.
right? It
Absolutely.
really works,
I think a little healthy competition is
There it is, right? Yep. Good. I'm more than happy to help you. Okay. Hint,
Thanks,
hint.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Question, well, actually not, well, maybe a question. Marion says that she's working out with a peristomal hernia. Is that okay?
I don't know what that is. I'm going to be honest with you. Let me back up and say any kind of hernia, if the exercises that you're choosing are making it worse or perhaps making it protrude, that's not wise. There's always a good chance that regardless of what kind of hernia you have, there's a way around it if it doesn't have to be something that needs to be surgically repaired. So there's almost always a way to find something that allows you to perform some kind of exercise without exacerbating a situation. Lots of people have different types of hernia, inguinal hernias, many, many different types. If you write to me, I'm more than happy to help.
Thanks, Jack.
You bet.
More questions. We've got just a few minutes left. Let's see. Oh, what about the egg and I wants to know about isometrics.
So everybody's heard that word, but not many people know what that means. So when you perform an isometric exercise, that simply means the technical definition is the muscle is still contracting, but it's no longer changing in length. So, for example, if you're doing a chest fly with dumbbells, right, you're moving so your chest is working. But if you take your two hands and squeeze them together, your chest will work, but is no longer moving. So basically, you load the muscle and hold still. If someone does a plank with body weight, that's an isometric exercise. You're holding still, but your muscles are contracting. So isometrics are great. Can you overload the muscles in a way to continue to build strength? Not forever, because very quickly your body will adapt and you're going to need more resistance than a simple isometric exercise can provide. But if you had nothing to do, if you were stuck in a hotel room and all you had was your body weight for a period of time, you could do isometric exercises and get benefit. But I don't think it's the only thing that you should do for long term. But isometrics help. Every time you pause during any movement of exercise for a moment, there's an isometric hold. So yeah, they help. They will work. Hope that helps.
Yes, thank you. Dee Creets is writing in, they have osteoporosis. Prior to diagnosis, they were doing the rebounder, however, was told by their, well, I don't know who told them, but it's not good for osteoporosis.
I think the recommendation there, the safety recommendation, they are concerned about too much impact. And that's a really tricky one because in the Lift More study I quoted earlier, there was also some impact. Back in the 80s when Jane Fonda came out with her high impact aerobics, she was criticized because of the risk. The truth is, impact helps to bone build mass. So you might not need it on a rebounder because the unstable platform, which is also what's forgiving about a rebounder, it's cushioning, can put too much risk on the ankles. So not knowing you personally, I can't say whether or not that recommendation was accurate or not. I don't want to override the recommendations from your physicians, but I want to tell you the truth that physicians sort of sometimes have a standard recommendation. Well, if you have osteoporosis, don't do this. You will not improve your osteoporosis without modifying your diet and performing some level of weight bearing activity. That's why the Lift More study would be something great for you to read and refer to. But connect with a trainer. There are even classes in lots of senior centers that offer classes, weight resistance exercise for people with osteoporosis. So you're choosing the exercises correctly that help you. But the unstable platform of a rebounder, your physician probably said, don't do it because it's going to put you at risk of a fall. That's my guess. But the exercise itself, if done correctly, can help with bone mass. It's not as good as jumping on the earth, right? Think about skipping rope. You're only jumping this high, but that's impact. That alone will strengthen the muscles in your bones. Just skipping rope. You don't have to jump off of a high platform. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Jack. Let's see. Tina's writing in, she's recovering from a slightly torn MCL ACL. While doing PT, they dinged my psoas muscle. And she has lupus. And so she's just wondering, I think, how to get back into a routine, heal her injury. And
Wow, she just said a whole lot. So obviously she had a pretty serious injury and dinged my psoas muscle. Maybe that means they overstretched it or overworked it. The psoas muscle crosses the front of the hip. It actually flexes the hip flexor. So, I think maybe you either had the wrong PT or need to connect with a different. There's a lot of functional exercises that you can do to correct those issues, especially if you've had it surgically repaired. I wasn't sure if you said that she had it surgically repaired. Many times, even without a repair, you end up in PT from an injury. But there are some simple basic exercises, weight bearing you work on. After injury, you work on range of motion. Then you strengthen the muscles, then you start weight bearing. So it's sort of a gradual process. But I'm certain there's something that can be done. Perhaps that wasn't the right PT and you need to connect with somebody else to help move you along. Don't give up. Don't be too discouraged. I know it's easy for me to say, but connect with the right people and you'll be able to find a way through this. Don't give up.
thanks, Jack. You're always so hopeful.
That's the way it is, Heather.
That's great. We've only got a couple minutes left. I'm going to have you back on because there's still questions coming in. But if someone wants to connect with you, I did put your email in the notes. What would that look like?
Well, generally speaking, when first thing I do with people is we set up a Zoom call so I can see you face to face. I would interview you just the same as if I was sitting across the table from you. We talk about your goals and objectives, any limitations you might have if you have pain or an illness or a disease or recovering from surgery or whatever it might be. And we decide we are a good match to work together. I will then design a program for you. And we design that program based on the equipment you may have or a few recommendations I suggest you purchase, dumbbells, a roller, some bands, right? I will then send you a workout with accompanying videos to demonstrate the exercises. And generally speaking, then we meet once a week and we go through that workout program. But the goal is for you to do the same program 2 more times a week. So you're now working out 3 times a week. And I'm going to be honest with you, some people, their workout is very short because of limitations, and others is quite long. And we adjust as we go. So that's generally speaking how we do it. Design the program, send you videos so you have something to refer to, and then we meet and we go through them and I guide you through them and progress as we go. So don't expect it to get easier, expect it to get harder.
You've got to
All
do the work, right?
right? You got to do the work.
All right, Jack, our hour is up. It was wonderful spending time with you. I learned a lot. You've inspired me to do more, start lifting some weights, hopefully inspired others to just do more than you did the day before, right?
Yep. Heather, super grateful to be here. Thank you. Would love to do it again. I'm more than happy to help anybody I can. And I really, really appreciate this today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. We appreciate your time. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Our next session is June 16th on Monday, and we will be with support specialist Stacy Cross. So thanks, everyone. Thanks again, Jack.